This is my review of the Jack White album Boarding House Reach. It was released in 2018 and produced by Jack White. So I would have got this album probably like a week after I got Lazaretto, and listening to this after Lazaretto was kind of a big shock. The country kind of direction he went on that album is almost completely gone on here. Not quite completely gone, so there is one pretty country-ish song on here. But for the most part, he goes in this really kind of electronic-y, weird-sounding direction. A ton of weird stuff on this album. The first time I listened to it, I was just kind of like, what the hell did I just listen to? Wasn't sure if I loved it or hated it, and kind of as a result, I've gone back to this album more than most of the Jack White albums. I just find it kind of a fascinating listen, and so I put it on pretty often, still kind of trying to make up my mind about a lot of it. But I think I kind of have an idea on most of the songs, how I feel about them. It's just kind of more the album as a whole where I'm not sure where I'd place this amongst his other albums. But I guess we'll get to that later with the ranking. The first track on the song, Connected by Love, I think is a really cool opener. It's one of the more straightforward tracks on the album. It's got a really good vocal performance by Jack. I think he just, like the emotion and the feeling in his voice really comes through. It's a really catchy song. Kind of the weird background vocals on it I think are cool, and that's something that's kind of throughout this album. There's all these weird backing vocals. So yeah, the opening track, definitely a highlight for me, and one of my favorite songs on the album. The second song, Why Walk a Dog, kind of a weird, slow song. It's got this really weird guitar solo type thing in it. I like that a lot. The background music on it is kind of the creepy electronic sounding keyboard stuff. Just a really weird song, but I like this one as well. Third track, Corporation. This is the longest song on the album. It's sort of an instrumental, but like not really, because it has him like talking over it and kind of doing these weird screams and going on about wanting to start a corporation. This one's really weird, and the first time I heard it, it's one of those things that like I didn't know how to react to it at all, but now I actually enjoy it quite a bit. I just think the music's really interesting, and his like talking about wanting to start a corporation, all the weird yelling and stuff like that, I just think it's kind of funny. So this one I like quite a bit as well. Fourth track, Dula and Arcasia. I probably completely butchered that, but it's kind of a short, just like bit of somebody talking over an instrumental thing. Not really that memorable as a part of the album. It's fine, but as a like standalone track, I probably wouldn't go to listen to it. The fifth track, I have no idea how to say the name. It's like Hyper Misophoniac or something. I don't know. It's a weird song. It sounds kind of like a jazz song on acid. I don't think it's bad or anything. I enjoy it while it's on the album, but it's not like a favorite of mine. The sixth track, Ice Station Zebra. This is definitely my least favorite track on the album. It kind of sounds to me like part of the music sounds almost like a classical song, then it sounds like a jazz song, then it kind of sounds like a metal song, or kind of like mixed into one, and then he's like rapping over it. And I think that's the vocal kind of being rapped kind of like kills it for me, because that as a vocal style just really doesn't do it for me. So this is my least favorite track on the album, but I don't like really hate it or anything. I think the instrumental part's kind of interesting. Seventh track, Over and Over and Over, is probably my favorite one on here. At least according to Wikipedia, it was like originally kind of planned for the White Stripes, so I think it kind of sounds like that. It's got a really catchy vocal part. I like the riff a lot. It's another one of those songs with the weird, crazy sounding backing vocals that I think are really cool, so big highlight for me. Really like this track. The eighth track, Everything You Ever Learned, starts out with this weird voice in the beginning that just keeps saying things about everything you've ever learned. And then Jack kind of starts like yelling over some jungle music for a while, and then it kind of turns into like more rock sort of music, and then it ends. So just another weird track that I don't really fully know what to think. While it's on the album, I don't really have a problem with it. The ninth track, Respect Commander. This one kind of has a long instrumental part to begin it. The vocals don't start until like 2 minutes in, I think. It's got some cool guitar. It's got a cool guitar solo towards the end, and it wasn't really like a highlight for me, but I enjoyed that one as well. The 10th track, Esmeralda. Esmeralda Steals the Show, I believe it is. I'm having a hard time reading my own handwriting. This one, kind of a poem with some acoustic guitar going on in the background. Another one that I don't really know what to think about, I guess in the context of the album, though I do kind of enjoy it. The 11th track, Get in the Mine Shaft. This one starts out with him like telling a story about going into some abandoned house and playing a piano. Then it kind of has weird music that's kind of, to me, sounded a little bit like Those Shoes by the Eagles, with like some Riders on the Storm keyboards thrown in here and there, and like some other stuff. It's kind of a really weird track, but I kind of enjoy the instrumental stuff in it. 12th track, What's Done Is Done, is where he goes back to like the country sound he had on Lazaretto, and I think it's done really well. This is another highlight of the album for me. I think it's a really catchy song. It does have some weird kind of instrumental stuff going on in it that makes it belong on this album, but it's really enjoyable. 13th and final track, Humoresque, is kind of a strangely straightforward, like acoustic song to close the album. I like it, and I think it kind of fits well ending the album like that, but it's not the most memorable track on here. Greenhouse Reach, really interesting album. I can't really say how much I like the whole thing. I think this is an album where like the sum is greater than the parts. As a whole, I enjoy the listening experience of it. I think it's a fun listen because of how out there it is and how weird and stuff. I don't know how many of these songs would make like my Jack White playlist. Corporation would, strangely enough, but there's a lot of stuff on here that, within the context of the album, I enjoy it. I probably wouldn't listen to it on its own. I definitely wouldn't start here of all of his albums. Like, this is probably the weirdest one. But I would definitely recommend checking it out if you've listened to his other stuff and if you like his other stuff. And I do think this is an album that like probably everyone should listen to at least once, because just how weird it is. Even if you're into Jack White or not, like, you should just check out some weird music, and this is definitely weird. So yeah, Boarding House Reach. It's a very interesting album.